Hey, Mary, did you hear the news about NASA and how the two astronauts finally came back?
I heard they were coming back, yes.
I love this quote from the Navy SEALs, and it says, "We train in times of peace so we don't get bloody in war." That's what they were basically doing. They had to mentally be prepared for all the kind of worst possible case scenarios to prepare for what could go wrong in space. And so I started researching some of the things that they did to mentally prepare to increase their mental toughness. And I thought we could talk about that and apply that to entrepreneurs and to salespeople.
Let's do it.
The first thing they did. Hey, and welcome to Jason Forrest Show. I'm with my wife, Mary Forrest, and today we are talking about the astronauts and how they were brought back safely from being stranded on the space station for 9 months. They were supposed to be there for 8 days, and Elon Musk sent SpaceX. He's like a modern day Iron Man. He came back and rescued them, which is phenomenal. But what we're going to do is we're going to talk about those mental toughness strategies that they did to stay resilient during that time of pressure, and how can we take those strategies and apply that to being a sales warrior, to being a warrior for our employees as a sales leader and as for an entrepreneur. And we're going to talk about just the idea of Lent. You can actually have sales Lent. So it's in a time of really like letting things go. And what are some things as salespeople and as leaders and entrepreneurs that we need to let go? We need to fast from in order for us to be even stronger. So we have those two topics and so many more. Are you ready to get started?
Let's do it.
All right. Hey, Mary, did you hear the news about NASA and how the two astronauts finally came back through SpaceX recovery? They were there for originally supposed to be there for 8 days, but they were there for 9 months, and they just came back safely.
I heard they were coming back, yes.
Yeah, pretty fascinating. And so it started to make me think about just from a perspective of mental toughness and like what in the world did they do to prepare for this? Because obviously, in a situation like this, they weren't planning on being there for 9 months, but I know they were preparing that something could go wrong, because there's always something that can go wrong, and they have to hope for the best and prepare for the worst. And so I started researching some of the things that they did to mentally prepare to increase their mental toughness on if something could go wrong in space, how do they withstand it? And I thought we could talk about that and apply that to entrepreneurs and to salespeople.
Yeah, that's great. Well, and it makes so much sense when you're saying it, but I never thought about that as part of the training, which I feel dumb that I never thought about that. But so now I'm very eager to figure out what they were doing.
Yeah, and there's little factoids I didn't even know either. Like, for example, that obviously we know that when they go to space, there's lots of atrophy because their muscles aren't being used. But there's also, because of the gravity, they actually get taller. So one of the things they have to deal with, which is kind of interesting, is one of the astronauts, not here, but one of the astronauts in a previous mission actually grew 2 inches, and so they grow taller because of the pressure. They grow taller while they're in space. But then when they come back on Earth and they get the gravity, they start to kind of shrink again, and that causes all kinds of like back problems and certain things, because now they're kind of getting shorter. So it's like the interesting thing.
Got it. So when they come back, he was still 2 inches taller, and then it's time that compresses back down.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's like kind of like our parents, how they get smaller as they get older. So, but I think it's because they rapidly get taller in space. It probably creates more of an impact on their body.
So I wonder if your neck and back issues go away when you get to space. It's like, everything's stretched out, you're back in alignment, or if it's the opposite. I don't know. Random thought.
So there's a lot they have to deal with, and so I was researching what do they do to prepare for the worst possible scenario. So the first thing they do is they have extensive pre-flight training. So again, prior to going to space, it's all about real life scenarios. So it's all about how do I make sure that I'm preparing for every single thing that we're going to encounter, so that I can really desensitize myself for it once we're in space. It reminds me of that quote from the Navy SEALs of we train in times of peace so we don't get bloody in war. And so this is a great thing that salespeople should be doing, prepare for the worst case scenarios.
Yeah, well, I mean, you always say that our training, not necessarily our training, but when you're training, it should be way more difficult. And we should give way harder scenarios than you would ever really get in the real world. That way, when you get out there and you get a mild objection, it's like nothing compared to what your sales manager just put you through. So you're ready.
You're right. And that's why in our training, we call it a dojo session, which is modeled after the martial arts, which is, again, it's about simulating that real life environment. So when they are out there, it's not as difficult.
Well, and it's reminding me of two things. One is with the sales teams is giving them like the hardest objection or being like the grumpiest, crustiest, like meanest prospect on earth. And then also the times with the training team before they're going out to present in person with people. Do you remember those days we would sit around the conference table and we would heckle them and throw things and get on our phones and not pay attention to see if they could hold their cadence and pull you back and handle that?
Yeah, those are some of my favorite moments.
Those were such good moments. They were ridiculous, and to watch everybody just be the worst audience in the world. But at that point, if you can work through that, nothing will faze you in a real audience.
So tell me something that you think it's important for a sales team to do in a simulated environment to prepare for what could happen in the real world.
Well, the scariest, each person has that scariest thing that you don't want somebody to say to you. And it's like the thing of your own sales nightmares. And, my sales nightmare was, said to me very early on, which was, it was calling to sell your training. And someone said, you mean the guy who taught you how to sell, you want to train my team? Are you out of your mind? Like, you're the worst salesperson I've ever heard from in my life. Like, I would never send my team to whoever trained you. I was like, just like total gut punch moment. I think I was 2 weeks in at that moment. So those things, like, what is the thing that you don't want to hear? Because if you can handle and figure out and get past that, right? They always say, like, you can't go around, like, the only way to get out of it is to go through it and experience it, desensitize to it, practice what you're going to say. If that comes up, well, now it's not scary anymore and you don't have to worry about it. And so all of those, like, if you're afraid that somebody is going to be mean to you, they're going to yell at you. If the thing that would just unnerve your soul is somebody using curse words at you, then somebody should use curse words at you, because it's not that those situations are probably really going to happen, but it's not what actually happens that throws most salespeople. It's our imagination of what could happen. And so we become weak in a moment because we have this story or this film running in our head of a nasty situation that could happen, or a mean thing somebody could say that would hurt our feelings. But if you've practiced that, you're not scared of it anymore. And it can't affect you anymore. And now you're actually at peace and freedom going to sleep at night. You're not worried about it. When you're in the car, I remember a lot of my anxiety would be when I was on the road constantly, was just the road time. When I walked into and was meeting with somebody, I never was that nervous. But the drive time in between is where my mind would go crazy. And so if I had worked through those things, or I was practicing the worst thing somebody could say to me, when they said, I don't know, your price seems a little high. Okay, that's not an issue anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love that. And that's not an out there concept. I mean, even the greatest of performers, again, before they have a great play or a great performance, they have a run through. And they just have a rehearsal to get all the kinks out and just to be desensitized to whatever is going to happen. And I know, like, we're in the performance world. I know that young kids sometimes you'll have huge audiences, right? That will be there just to kind of watch them perform, and that sometimes it's friends and family members and so forth, just to, again, experience the feeling of being on stage in front of a huge audience to get the butterflies out and desensitize.
Yeah, get ready for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So the big thing for me that comes up is anything that you've never, like, said or done before. You need to do that in some sort of simulated environment. And so that just, again, get to desensitize it. So, for example, in the home building space, a lot of our clients sell to the 55 plus market. And I was just actually talking to one just a second ago. And she said that their clientele during the summer months, it's so hot where they're at, that they basically just don't come out, like, during the summer months. It's like, it's so hot in the desert, it's just so hot, so they just don't come out. And so during that time, they, like, put off the home tours for 2, 3, 4 months. And so I just said, oh, well, a simple solution there is just do Zoom presentations. Just say to the customer, no problem. So I'll just take the experience to your home, just in the convenience of your living room, on your couch, your dining room table. You just need a laptop, and I'll give you a tour. I'll give you experience. And I said, what do you think about that advice to give the salesperson? And the sales manager said, there's no way she would do that. And I said, well, why not? And she said, well, she just has a huge fear of technology, and just she feels very uncomfortable with that. And so, but that's a great example of she would stumble through that, and she would awkward through that if we were to make her do that for the first time with a customer. And so she needs to do that several times in a simulated environment. So it just feels like part of her second nature to be able to make it happen.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I used to, do you remember, I used to throw brunches. I love cooking brunch food. I would throw brunches at my house, and I would have people, they would have to listen to me give an hour presentation.
I do remember that.
And then I would say, I need all the questions and problems, and throw them at me right now. So one, I was practicing my presentation speaker skills, and then I was practicing handling objections from my friends and family who were not real prospects. Like they didn't have businesses. They weren't somebody that I could sell to at the moment, but I wanted to practice with a real audience. And so I paid them with breakfast.
There you go. That's a great tip. So the second thing that the astronauts do to prepare for the absolute worst case scenario is it's all about team building and sensitivity training, which I thought was pretty interesting, is that they wanted to make sure that they bond. And so there's a lot of actual like trust training that goes on before, and there's communication training that goes on before, so that if they are in these high stress, high stakes scenarios, that they are advanced communicators. They're advanced. They'd be able to talk about how they feel and what struggles they're going through and what they need from each other. Because again, now they're with this fellow astronaut for the next 9 months, and they were planning on being there for 8 days. And so obviously they're going to get very personal with each other, and they're going to have to work as a team and get through it.
Wow. Do we know any of the questions or anything that they would ask or do?
I don't. I don't know that. I'm looking for that research, but I don't know that. But but I think it's really interesting, and I think that I'm curious your perspective on what would you. I mean, like right now, the first thing that comes up, and I'm curious your thoughts on this, is that a lot of salespeople are independent. Like some of the best salespeople we know are lone wolves, but then they're put in a team-based selling environment, and that might not be that they're selling as a team. Sometimes they are. They're either selling as a team, or they're two people in the same like model home or the same situation. And so they're having to like work together in some capacity. And so what advice would you give those two lone wolves that really like to be Rambos and be independent, and now they got to be Navy SEALs and work together?
Probably step one is go have a beer together outside of work and figure out what matters to each other. What do you care about? Why do you do what you do? Because when you do have that, I mean, I think what's interesting, when you have lone wolf to lone wolf, there's a deep mutual respect there, and it's kind of the boundaries come up. I think one of the problems where I would see more issues is I've got a lone wolf person with somebody who prefers being part of a pack, and now they're paired together, and one of them is like, let's be friends, let's do things together, and the other one's like, leave me alone, like let me do my own thing, right? So there's one that wants the teamwork, one that doesn't. And I think back. For me, you remember early on, I like working with other people. I don't like being alone. I'm fine on my own sales goals and being responsible for myself, but I like being around other people. But remember when Laura was part of the team, and she was the most lone wolf person I've ever seen in my life, of wanting to not talk to anybody else, and incredibly effective and brilliant and passionate about what we did, just did not want to work with anybody else, which made it kind of an awkward situation for the two of us, because I wanted to. So for us, what we did at that situation that worked really well, I would recommend to other people that are put in that place, is here we just had times, like here are the times that we're going to collaborate, and I need to know what you're doing and you need to know what I'm doing, and we got to be able to take care of each other's customers. And then here are the times that we go do our own thing. And when we had those times that were together, I knew that I needed to respect her space and us doing our own thing during those times. And she knew she needed to come together and work together with me on those designated times. So it's just very scheduled out.
I love that. I love that. So schedule out your connection time.
Yes. Be scheduled with it.
Got it.
Absolutely.
I love that. The third thing is have psychological support systems. And they said space agencies provide continuous psychological support, including regular communication with mental health professionals and access to virtual reality environments that simulate Earth natural settings. These measures help mitigate feelings of isolation and confinement. So what they were actually doing to help them stay psychologically sound is they had these basically forced encounters with therapists. So they which made sense, right? They had times every week where they had forced encounters with therapists to share their feelings and share what's going on and keep their mind in the game. They had forced encounters with family and support systems back on Earth to, again, keep them focused, keep them connected to something bigger than themselves. Spirituality was a part of it, that were into something bigger than themselves from that perspective. And then they also had access to virtual reality environments to simulate Earth's natural settings. And that was really interesting to actually try to get them back grounded. I would, in some cases, I would think that would backfire. I would think that would, they're paying attention to what they can't have, but it's interesting.
Maybe, but remember we used to do all those muse meditations? Do you remember that? Where it had
the birds,
the little birds chirping when you were in, I think, theta wavelengths. But remember, you could have sounds you pick water or desert or ocean or whatever it was. I think I like the babbling brook sound. But I will say for that, I wasn't actually in a babbling brook place, but having that sound simulation. Now, it's not the visual, so it's not exactly what they're doing, but that was very calming. Even when at the time where I did that very frequently, we were downtown in an urban condo. There were no babbling brooks. There's barely a piece of grass around. And that simulation of nature was really effective for me. So I could see it from that perspective. But I had the same thought you did of if I'm sitting there looking at the redwoods and I'm not, the only thing I can think of is when, we were doing all the trail running simulations and the weather's bad. So we're on a treadmill or a Stairmaster and you've got you have the little place, the trail you're running in some other country. And I mean, in some ways I like it. In some ways it's incredibly frustrating that you're not there.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I definitely relate to the concept of connecting to, again, mental health professionals and obviously connecting to family. So I think that's a great thing that big sales teams should do and companies should do is they should find ways to, number one, how do you bring in your family to the sales team? So for example, you and I, we have our company, Forrest Performance Group, FPG.com, has lots of employees in Nicaragua. And so we went down there and spent time with them and their family. And we had their family to dinner. And then we, wrote kind words and kind words of affirmation and validation to the employees in front of their parents, and their parents got to hear that. And it connected our employees to their family and the family to us. And I think that was a very healthy exercise.
Yeah. I think, we've had several things over the years where we wanted to include families and, also including, kids being able to come to work if they want to come and learn something. And, I love every bit of that. The other thing, when it's talking about mental health professionals, there's a lot of ways to do that. Now, as long as I have known you, you have had a coach, and it's changed. I mean, you've had many coaches over the years, sometimes a couple of coaches at once, but always had a coach. When did that start for you? Is that something, because that's basically what they're saying there is you've got to have somebody outside of you, a professional that's going to help you get to the next level, handle your mindset on things, make sure there's somebody to fine tune you. And so, I mean, I've never known you to not have a coach, but I'm guessing maybe it had to start at some point. When was that? Who was your first coach?
I mean, yeah, I think it was very socially acceptable in my family. So coaching in my family was very acceptable. So in the sense of in sports, I always had a third party. My dad would always pay for some third party coach to work with me. When I struggled with with math or with reading or with writing when I was a kid, my dad would just swoop in and be like, no problem, we're getting you a tutor. The tutor will be here on Thursday. It was just this very kind of acceptable thing that if you are struggling with someone, you have two options in life, and that's to go through the experience tax. This is my own thing I'm making up here, but the experience tax, which is eventually you will figure it out on your own through your own experience. Or you can not pay the experience tax and you can get coached by someone else and get the cheat code and just get there faster. And so that's just always been, that wasn't something directly that my dad would say is like, you need to go find a coach. It was just something that we just did. He never told me to do that. That was just always part of the process. That was just, again, if I needed to be stronger in the gym, I have a trainer. If I needed to be stronger in school, we got a tutor. That was just always the thing. That was always what we did.
So that foundation was laid from being a child.
Mm-hmm.
So here's where I'm really curious next is then you become an adult, because I know the number one thing that stops people from having a coach is I don't have the money to do it. I don't have the finances. So for you, what was that amount? Did it immediately you had a coach as an adult that you were paying for, or did you feel like I need to earn a certain amount of money and then it's responsible? I'm fiscally responsible enough to get a coach? Or how do you make that determination? And I know now you will pay crazy amounts for the right coach.
Hundreds of thousands
of dollars a year for the right coach. Even when the money's not sitting there because there's going to be a return on it. But where was that in your early career life?
I think again, I think the mentality I've always had is that I need to find the area that I'm not good at, and I can either A, figure it out on my own, which I don't have time for that, or B, I can go learn from someone else, and someone else can kind of just give me their experience. So I can buy someone else's experience with my money, and I can buy their time, I can buy their experience, or I can just do it. I could just do it myself. And so even when I was, making $40,000 a year, I would still do that. I would just buy the best tutor or coach or counselor that I could afford with the $40,000. So now I can just afford I can afford higher caliber coaches and traders today because I make more money, but I would.
So you had more self-study things back then maybe too, or you still were doing personal one-on-one coaching?
Definitely tons of self-study, but I would still pay for a personal trainer at the gym, or I'd pay for a nutrition counseling session on why is it that I'm getting, fat around my waist and I need a nutritionist.
The cookies. The cookies.
Yeah. I need a nutritionist to tell me that. I mean, even when I was young, I would do that. So, and even in college, I paid for my own personal tutors when I was, just working part-time.
Excellent. Okay.
So,
very interesting.
So tutors, coaches, and I think that the struggle people have is, you and I paid a tremendous amount of money to go, again, be coached by the Gottmans, which is the number one marriage counselor in the world. And therefore they're the number one. They're also the most expensive. That's how it works, right? Number one, most expensive.
And we went directly to them, to their home.
Right.
It was like, how close can we get? We're going to come to your house. Perfect. That's what we want. And actually most of our coaches, we have flown to their homes.
Right.
And been with them as close as we
Which in their case, it was quite a jaunt, right? Because you have to fly to Seattle, and then you got to take a seaplane, and then you got to go to the middle of nowhere, and then you have to knock 3 times, and you have to go it was crazy.
Find the heart statue on the fourth curve of the road that's
really
unmarked.
It really was that.
It really was that.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Then follow the staircase that's in the side of the mountain. Follow that down the mountain. The fourth building you get to. It was wild.
The big reframe I want people to get is that whenever, if you ever tell anyone, we told our kids this. We told our kids, we said, we're going to see the Gottmans, the number one marriage counselor in the world. And I said, we asked all 3 children, what's your immediate response? What's your immediate response to the fact that we're doing this? And what did they say?
Are you getting divorced?
Are you getting divorced?
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy. I mean, these are our teenage children, and they've been around us, and they know how important personal development is for us. But still, their immediate response
is that we're dancing in the kitchens, not fighting with each other too. So it doesn't make
Yeah. So, but unfortunately that's the belief system of the average, or the belief system of a teenager, is that which the belief system of an average is probably similar to the belief system of a teenager, and so. But to me, it's not counseling, it's coaching. And And nothing has to be wrong in order to get coaching. But there's always a problem that's preventing you from going to the next level. And if you don't have like peace and freedom in how to like up level yourself, then again, you either need to slug it out and you need to figure out how to do it through your own experience, which there's going to be an experience tax with that. It's going to cause more stress and more heartache and more effort and more time. Or you can buy someone else's experience and then use their wisdom.
Oh, I like that sentence though. Buy someone else's experience. I never thought about it that way. That was really good.
That's what coaching is. I mean, that's why people hire us. Yeah. I mean, the number one reason they hire us is because they want our experience. Like the number one question we're always asked is, well, tell us, I mean, I'm always asked, I'm sure you're asked this too with your sales teams, is what other problems are your other sales teams dealing with? And what are you telling them to overcome those problems? Isn't that a common question you're asked?
Yes.
Common
yes.
question.
And then on the prospecting side is, have you ever dealt with this before? Did you win? Mm-hmm. Like, have you ever worked with a company like ours? Have you ever worked with a person like me? Have you ever seen this scenario before? That's the question that comes up. And yes,
100%.
Like 99% of the time, the answer is yes.
Yeah. So I had a prospect that I'm very confident we're going to close. And I asked her, so what's your number one problem, that's holding you guys back? And she said, well, we have these two $10 million homes that have been sitting idle, and they're inventory homes. They've been sitting idle for almost 2 years. Two $10 million.
You do not want homes with birthdays.
Inventory homes. So those are like little liabilities for the company. So that's a lot of money right there.
And you said they're $10 million homes?
$10 million a piece. Mm-hmm. There's two of them. And so I just immediately started, I said, well, if I never talk to you again, I said, here's a couple of things that you should consider. And I immediately said, do both of them have some sort of selling message? Have you created a selling message of, I can't wait to show you this home. This is the entertainer's home. The reason why I like it is blank. The reason why the architect decided to design this home is the following. The number one thing that we hear about this home is this and this. As we go through it, I want you to point out, do you agree with what I like about it or what other people like about it? And she's like, no, we're not doing any of that. I said, so what's the feedback you're getting on the home? Like, what are people saying? And she said, well, we're not really sure actually what they don't like about it. And I said, well, immediately, that's number one, create a selling message. And number two is every single time you show that house, either there's a contract or I need to know why there's not a contract. And I said, what I'm looking for is the salesperson has to ask, tell me your number one area of resistance from buying this house today. And then they're going to tell you that answer. And then we're going to immediately solve that problem. Like we're going to immediately come up with scripts and messaging and frames on how to not let that problem ever be a problem. They should never have the same problem twice. And I said, do you believe if you would have been attacking these inventory homes since the birth of them over 2 years ago, do you think they still would have been around 2 years later? And she said, no, they would not have been. And I said, perfect. So I said, this is what you can already do just from this conversation we're having right now. Obviously, when we work together, we'll do a lot more than what I'm talking about, but you need to start with this immediately.
That's awesome.
So, but that's what she was asking for. I mean, she's part of the sales conversation with me is do we have answers to the problems they haven't been able to solve? And do we have the map, right? Do we have the map that's going to get them to the Wizard of Oz? And that's what's important. And that's what you're really paying for coaching. And so any coaches that are listening right now, I would encourage you in your sales process to make sure that you do some sort of free coaching during the actual coaching experience or during the sales conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. I remember on my computer, it always had a little sticky note that said, teach them something. And my way of doing it every time is I would say, hey, thank you for sharing that problem with me. Do you mind if I pause our sales conversation for just a moment and I tell you how I've worked with other companies on how to solve this problem, and I give you a way that might work right now. I can't leave you when I think I have the answer. I can't walk away from the conversation not telling you. And every single one of them would say, yeah, you can pause the sales conversation, fix that for me. And then after that, I go, okay, are we done? Like, feel good? Good. Okay. Is it okay with you now if we jump back into the sales conversation? Yeah. And now, I mean, the momentum for that and the excitement, absolutely. Absolutely. You should solve something on every sales call.
Yeah. Well, that's huge because there's really kind of 5 things I think every customer is probably wondering whenever they're deciding if they're going to buy from a salesperson or not. And that's number one is can I trust the salesperson? So does the salesperson can I trust them as the guide? Number two is do they have some sort of solution, a map that I haven't tried? And do I believe that map is going to work for me? And then number three is, has that map worked for anyone else? And then number four is what's the kind of internal struggle of, am I really going to do this? Do I have time to do this? Is it worth the effort? And then number five is am I going to get any kind of pushback from anyone else around me when I deploy this? And is it going to be socially acceptable? And so what you're doing by that approach, and what I did with that approach, is you're selling them on at least one of those two problems, which is that you have a map that I don't have. Mm-hmm. And I would like to buy that map from you.
That's excellent.
Which is what coaching is.
Yeah. I love it.
Yeah. So the third thing was the psychological support systems. Again, having the connection with the coaches, the mental health professionals, and obviously the friends and support system. The next thing that two more things. The fourth thing was stress management techniques, which makes sense, is that they were constantly being taught mindfulness practices, relaxation techniques. And I thought this one was pretty interesting, and that's maintaining a structured daily routine. I really liked that. I know you're getting all excited right now with your structure word.
Yes.
So tell me about
Amen.
that. Yeah. Why do you think that? Because I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, I mean, it makes sense, but why do you think that's so important to keep your mental toughness?
I love it when you talk sweet to me like this. Oh my gosh, you're an amazing man. Okay. So, and it's fun because I was actually working with a team on this today. When I say a team, I mean a class of leaders from a lot of different teams today. And I think it's because when I have something, I don't know if you remember that first day, like maybe when you had a job before you graduated college, didn't you? Weren't you one of those kids that you were already swiped up before graduation? Okay.
I did. They came down and yeah.
Okay, smart ass. I was not swiped up. I was a free agent for a little while. But I remember that right after college graduation, looking at my planner and seeing like empty, and just this panic came over my body of like, for some people, I think that'd be freeing. Like I can do anything I want. And I had panic in it. Like, I don't know what to do. And I don't know whether I'm any good at anything now. I don't know at the end of the day if I've won or not. So when I was talking to the team today about it, it's interesting. Some leaders that I was working with and some salespeople have their days really planned out. And some, it's like massive amounts of white space, which then they were looking back and I was like, would you do, last week on Tuesday at 2, from 2 to 5, there's nothing there. What'd you do? I don't remember. I don't know. I'm sure it was a lot. Well, when we look back at it that way, now I'm not saying that I win, but I think one of the struggles that so many people have just in work in general, like just human beings that are going into a workplace even more, is like, at the end of the day, did I win? Like, was my day worth it? And they're just like, they're not going to sleep at night being like, I conquered the day. I did really well. And when we can sit there and go, here's my day to keep me accomplished. And I'm going to wake up at this time. And even like the things, some of it's not even work related. Then I'm going to work out. I'm going to eat a healthy breakfast. I'm going to feel great. And then I'm going to be out the door at this time. And then I'm going to like prep and role play for my first sales calls of the day. Then I'm going to review my notes to get ready because my meeting's coming in at 9:30. And then this is happening. It's 1, 2, 3. You have wins all day long. I win. When we're in that winning cadence, like you're better for the people that are walking in the door. You're better as an employee. You're a better spouse. You're a better parent. And you're better for you because you go to sleep at night. You have a winner's sleep, not the panicked loser sleep or like the ambiguity sleep. You have a winner's sleep. But if you've looked at your calendar and it's blank and you're just kind of flittering around, and I'm not saying you're not busy or doing something important, you probably are, but you're just kind of flittering around to one thing to another and a fire to a fire, which if you have a lot of fires, that means you have a business system of fire hazards. You should not be putting out fires all day as a salesperson, as a leader, as an owner of an organization. If you are putting out fires, it's because you have set up a system full of fire hazards. We got to get rid of those. But if I can sit there, I can just win all day long as opposed to flittering around on white space, not really knowing, did I do what I was supposed to do today or did I not do? Because then I'm questioning all day. Well, I know I spent time over here with this client. Maybe I should have been with this client. I was with this employee. Maybe I should have been with this employee. I don't want anybody questioning. It's that questioning and confusion that causes all that inner turmoil and has people in anxiety, not able to sleep, feeling bad, and they go to the next morning and then they want to know why they're burnt out. It's because they're flittering around in white space all day. God, I love talking about structure. Ask me more calendar questions.
This is great. So I love that because I also feel personally that if I get off my routine, which sometimes we do because we get sick or something happens, or you travel and you get off a routine. If you get off that routine, then yeah, I do just feel kind of I feel like something's wrong, right? Something's missing. And so yeah, really. So sticking to that structured routine and being really disciplined to it, 100% I know helps my fortitude, my mental toughness, for sure. And I definitely agree with you. I love that concept that it's like this almost this paradox of freedom, because I'm all about Forrest equals freedom, and this paradox of the freedom of the white space will actually not give you freedom.
Yeah,
like that's the paradox.
Well, yes, and that goes back to my event planning days. So I remember, working either with mothers of the bride or with the HR owners of businesses when I was doing those, or working with chief of staff. I did so many, political fundraisers back in the day, and sitting with, let's say the chief of staff for somebody and going through the list and people being like, my schedules of those times for events were in 5 to 15 minute increments. 15 minutes was the longest I would allow anything without having like what needs to be done. And most of it's 5 minutes. Here's what needs to happen in the next 5 minutes, the next 5 minutes. And it is so crazy detailed. And it wasn't that detailed because I had to stick to that. It was so nothing could get left off. So if something had to move, I could quickly move it around and figure how it was going to fit and not let anything fall off. So it looked over scheduled, but it was in the scheduling that we had freedom to now we can go into the event and let the art come out and the things that need to happen. And this person needs to speak a little bit longer. And now we need this music and this person arrives late. And this is how the food service is going to go. And we could be fluid and we could be artistic within the structure. Without the structure, it's a big mess. And you miss things. So I always tell people, if you want to have this feeling in an event that it is just all naturally occurring and flowing and beautiful, it has to look like this on paper before. And so absolutely, that's the way. And I think too, I like days of freedom. Vacation Mary is very different from work Mary. And Vacation Mary doesn't want to have anything scheduled. I like to just go with the flow and see what comes up that day. But that's scheduled. It's like, this is the freedom day. Or last Saturday, we decided to observe the Sabbath on Saturday. And so Saturday, we had nothing scheduled. Like Saturday was Sabbath day, and what feels good and what do we want to do next and how are we going to rest? But it's scheduled for Saturday. So there's now freedom within the scheduled spot for the Sabbath or for freedom.
Love it. All right. Final thing that they did to prepare for increased your mental toughness is, of course, physical exercise, which makes a lot of sense. Of course, every time that you work out, I know every time I work out, if I'm ever feeling a little bit like anxious or anything, then obviously working out gets that energy that's kind of like stuck in my body. It gets out of my body, which is great, and which I think is an important thing to do, because I think at least for me, just speaking for me, I believe that from a high achiever's perspective, the feeling of anxiety sometimes is nothing more than just like a crazy amount of like energy that's just like stuck in your body, and it just needs to be like getting out of it. It just needs to be like get out of the body. Like that's the key to that. So
yeah, for me, there's two. There's that one, and then I go. It's different. You probably go punch a bag, and I go dance it out somewhere. But the others, I think these micro workouts. So I know if I have, I've learned if I'm working from home, to walk around our block is 8 minutes. So if I have 10 minutes, I can talk to somebody, I can listen to something, or I know 8 minutes, just a little bit of movement is helpful. And when I was on the road, cold walking businesses as a salesperson, if I got somewhere early, I'd, park down the street and can I go walk the block there or something, just to get some movement and some sunlight in between. And if I had time to do that, man, did it change the day for sure.
That's awesome. All right. So several things that we can apply and we learned from the astronauts. I'm so glad that they got home safely.
Yes.
But obviously these mental toughness strategies are phenomenal that we can apply to entrepreneurs and to salespeople and to leaders on how to stay mentally tough in the high performance world of selling. So what else is going on that you've noticed this week in current events?
Well, not so much in current events. I've had a thought lately, and I was thinking because this is a season of fasting right now. We are in the middle of Lent. We are also in the middle of Ramadan. So both seasons of fasting and keeping and deciding to not have something in our life, which has made me think about, for salespeople, what are things that we can fast from, or things that we can decide for, the month or the 40 days to limit ourselves in order to start having more awareness and creating new habits. So I came up with some things that we could do. The first is leading with incentives. So if we just were to take that out, I know that's something that you are always preaching to not do.
That. Mm-hmm.
So I thought this would be a good time to do it. Others were over speaking the prospect. And so whenever they're speaking and you get excited and you start answering their question before they fully finished, or you just speak on top of them, is one of them. Another is unhealthy lunches. So that goes in a lot with the fasting that happens anyway with these seasons. But if you're eating something unhealthy, I know you and I believe that if you're the food is going to fuel you in the way of what that food is. So if you're eating unhealthy things, you're not going to feel great. And if you're not feeling great, you're not going to be as bold as you should be. So how can you fuel yourself with food that's going to support your body? And then the fourth one was complaining or speaking negatively about your prospects. So that is one that just always grates on me if somebody is speaking negatively about their prospects. So if I'm doing a training call and a sales team comes in and they're like, oh my gosh, these people, they're the worst. This is happening. I'm like, we're so out of alignment with who that person is, and you're not looking at them as the perfect person and creation that they are, that of course they're not moving forward with you yet. You're not seeing them like the real them. You're seeing behaviors. You're seeing, crotchety behavior. You're focusing on that instead of who they really are. And so, of course, they haven't come in alignment with you enough to move forward. So I thought all of these were ways that if one is going to help create a healthier salesperson, but it's also going to give you great results. So I'm interested in your feedback, or if there's anything you would add to that list.
Yeah. So one, I love the idea of not talking over the hack, not talking over a prospect. The hack that I love using is when I'm on Zoom, is that I just keep myself muted, because I do find myself getting excited and I want to make sure I don't overtalk like you're talking about. And so the hack that I do is I literally just mute myself. And so that way I'm real mindful now of like, they've completely stopped talking. And then when they stop talking, I unmute myself and I start talking. So I don't keep myself open that whole time. So anyway, just a little fun hack for people who sell via Zoom, which can be super helpful.
Interesting. I like that. And then let's do hacks for the rest of them. What do you do? What's a hack for not leading with incentives? So if you're used to, flat out the gate telling people like, hey, we have this promotion going on. I've got this deal. Like, do you want to buy? How do you get out of that if you're in it?
How do I get out of that? So one, you just got to remind yourself that if you're giving any sort of incentive in the beginning, you're not using it for the correct term. So it's not an incentive. It's now a discount. And so you just need to know what you're doing. You're starting off discounting the value of your home. So if you're actually trying to use it to close business, then the customer has to want what you're offering them before you provide the incentive. So the purpose of an incentive is they already want this and they're going to buy it, but they're just not going to buy it today. And so then you put an incentive in there to get them to buy it today, something they already would have done. So if you know for sure that they're not going to buy it yet, then there's no point of an incentive. That doesn't actually do anything. All that does is discount it.
Awesome. Okay. What are your, well, this is kind of funny. How do you make sure that you eat a healthy lunch every day?
Because you're the one that makes it.
Because I pack it. I know. I was just wondering. As I was going through the list, I'm laughing about that. So, what do you think? What are things that are fuel giving, but don't bog you down, but give you energy? What do you like to eat for lunch? It's just for fun.
I drink a lot of protein shakes. I drink a lot of like kind of green juices, a lot of like vegetable juices. I drink a lot of that. I had a lot of, trying to have a lot of protein, like protein, what are they called? Like meat
Bars?
sticks.
Oh yeah.
You don't like
Ugh.
those, but like high protein meat sticks.
Mm-hmm.
You also put like lunch meat in my lunch, just so I can kind of snack on like lunch meat throughout the day. But I'd really try to reduce. I try to have at least amount of carbs as possible. So just really high protein, high vegetables.
Yes, good. Okay, and the last one was complaining or speaking negatively about prospects, but I don't think we need a hack for that. Just don't do it, right? Just stop it.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing you could say to remind yourself of why is that there is an energy that goes on, and people are buying your energy. And if like right now people like close their eyes and like let's say I'm the person and I'm just thinking super negatively about you, and I'm thinking just how slow you are, or how unsophisticated you are, or how miserable you are to be around. Like, how do you feel about me, even though you don't know that I'm saying those things about you?
Yeah, I don't even like you doing that right there. I was putting up little blocks and stuff because I was like, I don't like what this happening right now. So I'd like you to think some positive things. But yeah, you feel that, right? Like you can feel when somebody doesn't like you.
Right. And when they don't respect you and so forth. So from a prospect's perspective, they have to feel like you're the guide. That's what you're selling. You're selling them that you're the guide that's going to get them to the Wizard of Oz, or you can give them to Mordor if you want to use Lord of the Rings. And so that's what you're selling them. And so that would be the biggest thing. You have no chance of selling them if you feel bad about the person.
Perfect. Well, okay. I also put 3 things that people can add, because some people like, instead of taking something away for Lent, I want to add a positive behavior. So I came up with 3 there. One is just to have a personal development practice, just period. So whether that's you're listening to something, you're reading something, you're something that you are choosing for personal development wise. Number 2, it's actually interesting. It's right in alignment with what you just were doing, which take 60 seconds to think about what you like most about a prospect, what's good about them, and think about that for 60 seconds before you call them or before they walk in for the meeting.
Great.
So you're just really focusing on what's great about them. And number 3 was taking brain breaks, giving your brain a little time to rest in between. So any feedback on those, or hacks, or anything that you would add?
I think just having an outbound prospecting practice on a daily basis. I mean, even if it's just as simple as like, that's not really your thing, but it's just, I'm going to call 1, 2, 3, 4 people, every single day. And I'm just going to start my day, the first hour, just calling prospects. That's all I'm going to do. And the purpose of that is it'll create this success habit for you. But number 2 is, all of our research has shown that conversion rates skyrocket if you're an outbound prospector. So from an NLP perspective, you have an initiator and you have a waiter, right? And so initiator is someone who initiates, like they love kind of that outbound type of experience. Then you have more of a waiter, which is more of that retail salesperson. And they were like, hey, we love selling. I just don't love prospecting. And so as long as you bring me someone, I'm great at closing them. And that's true. However, what the research has found, and I was just teaching another team this just earlier today, is that if a weight-based sales team never actually brings in a single unit of traffic on their own, their conversion rate will still go up with the ones that you bring them from marketing.
Because they've tried to go get them? Because
it's changing the meta pattern in the brain wiring, that it's forcing them to go from being a waiter to an initiator.
So, okay, say it again. So if a weight-based person never actually brings someone in, but they're trying to,
correct?
Because that's the part I missed.
Yes.
So they're trying. They're attempting to bring someone in. So even if they fail at that, they're still better with marketing leads.
Correct, because the best salesperson that has the highest conversion rate is actually an initiator, not a waiter. So if you take a initiator and you put them in a weight-based environment, like, so for me, for example, I was a cold caller, and so I was a stockbroker for Merrill Lynch, 100 cold calls a day. And then all of a sudden I got put into a model home, a retail sales environment where customers came to me, right? So I was a waiter. But because I had this mindset of this meta pattern, this brain wiring of being an initiator, I initiated. So what would I do? Well, prior to them coming into the model, I would call them prior to coming in. They had an appointment at 2. I would call them at 1 just to make sure they were on their way, and then I would talk to them on the way in. Or they're a prospect's driving up to the model home, and what am I doing? I'm walking out, and I actually would open the door for them to their own car. I would open the door and open the door. Or if they had a baby in the back, I would help them get the baby out. And so I'm initiating, and I'm pulling them out. Well, think about the opposite of the true waiter. The true waiter sees the prospect coming up to the model home, hears the little chime go off that says someone walked into their door. They're still back in their sales office. And until the customer says, "Is anyone here?" That's when they actually get out of their chair and they go and greet the person. So that's the extreme case of the waiter, right? So if you have these kind of weight-based, retail-minded salespeople, what we have found is that by adding just that little bit of initiation for them, and they take that more of attack approach, which is what initiate is, they take that, their conversion rate actually goes up because now they're initiating those inbound leads.
That's so interesting. And that makes sense because I worked in an outbound call center. There was, I think in the 4 years I worked there, the phone rang one time for one person. There were 30 of us calling at a time, all outbound. In 4 years, one person had one inbound call. It just didn't exist. And so you're right that you think about the people that walk in very differently than if you are just expecting people to always just walk in for you.
Well, that's another byproduct.
Okay, that's different. That's different than what you're saying.
So what you're talking about is it's more the mindset of I'm not entitled. I'm not sitting here waiting for marketing to give me someone, and it's marketing's job to give me prospects, and I don't know how really hard it is, and so I'm entitled. They just need to give me prospects. That's more of a mindset thing. And so yes, when you go and prospect yourself, and you actually get, let's say, 1, then it's like, oh my gosh, that was so difficult to get that 1. And so now you have a much higher level of respect. I mean, it's kind of like, a kid has to contribute to their insurance of their car, or buying part of the car or part of their college versus just the whole thing handed to them. It's like they're going to appreciate it more than if it's just all handed to them. That's the concept that you're referring to, which is one of the byproducts of if someone is a prospector, and even if they're really bad at it and they only bring in one person extra a week or one person extra a month, then yes, it will still make their conversion rate go up because they will own the lead more. They will respect the lead more. They will treat the lead like it's royalty when it is that marketing lead. But that's different though than what I was referring to. So yeah, so there's 2 benefits of being an outbound prospector in an inbound type selling situation. One is it changes your mindset. So you now respect the leads more and you treat it like gold, which is what every owner would love their salespeople to do, is treat it like gold. But number 2 though, is it actually changes their selling style. Is now their selling style is not this weight selling style of how can I help you? What brings you out today? What questions can I answer? That's not what an initiator would ever say. An initiator would say is welcome to ABC Homes. My name is Jason and you are. It's so great to have you here. Follow me. I'd love to show you around. I mean, that's an initiator. It's you're here for a reason and I'm going to pull you in. Not a waiter is more like, why are you here now? What are you doing here? This is kind of freaky.
What brought you in?
I'm kind of confused.
Do you know where you are?
Yeah. So you could see that whole thing changes, right? I mean, that whole mindset changes just by making that one mental shift. So the advice that I gave a leadership team today is they actually said to me, they're like, we really like your Pipeline is Your Lifeline course, and specifically for real estate in the home building world that we were talking to right now. I said, we really like it, and we really think that they're getting some value out of it, but some people haven't actually generated a single prospect on their own. And that's when I went into this point.
Got it.
And I said, don't even worry about that. They're getting 2 huge benefits out of this by not bringing a single prospect in. And the benefits are your conversion rates going up because of these 2 things. They're owning the prospects now they didn't before, and you're turning them into an initiator, not a waiter. And I said, so I need you to report back and tell me how much your conversion rate's gone up with the marketing traffic that you've had in the last 2 months. And I bet you it's gone up. I promise you it will. I promise
That is so fascinating. I love it. Very cool.
Yeah. So anyway, so much. Okay. So, all right. So I know there's 2 videos I wanted to show. So this first one is a Shaolin monk. And when I watched this video, I just got so much out of it. So check this out.
You think that Everything the mind tells you, I need to follow. That means freedom. No, for us, it's the other way around. To learn and not follow what the mind tells you. This is the first step towards freedom.
Okay, fascinating. And isn't it amazing that now we've got 3 different religious traditions that are saying, do not follow what the mind is saying. Your mind says, I'm hungry. Your mind says, go eat meat. Your mind is saying this. When you deny the mind, it's actually going to bring a freedom, a health, and a deeper spirituality from it. 3 traditions right now. Because I was, brought up 2, and here's a 3rd one saying the same thing. I think it's pretty cool.
It's very cool. But I love this. I love this from the perspective, again, of selling and entrepreneurism, is that I think so often, again, our mind plays tricks on us, right? So our mind says that the thing that I need to do right now is lower the price in order to sell this. Well, that's not really the thing you need to do. Or the thing that I need to do right now is I just need more customers. Do you really need more customers, or do you need more time with each customer? Like, what do you really need? And so I think it's just an interesting thing that we have to be careful about, that sometimes the thing as a salesperson that we think we need is going to give us freedom is actually the opposite of that, is what gets you freedom. So I need more traffic. No, you need more time. I need more incentives to sell what I'm offering. No, I need to figure out a way to get to show them the value of why people are paying a higher price. Like that's the freedom.
Yeah. And the things I'm thinking about when you're saying it are, I need to text them and not call on the phone, because calling on the phone is intrusive, and it's 2025 and people don't do that anymore. Or I need to give them space to make the decision, because they're my grandparents' age, and I'm not supposed to tell somebody my grandparents' age what to do. So the most respectful, kindest, best thing I can do for them is just let them go and figure it out on their own. And both of those are so wrong, but people's brains tell them that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So be careful.
Fascinating.
Yeah, be careful. The next video is one of the things that we teach, we call it the rule of selling, and that's to make it easy for customers to give you their money. And the reason for this is because people work really, really hard to make money, and the last thing they want to do is work hard to spend money. And one of the things that we know that one of the things that great salespeople do is they are selling their time to the customer. And the whole philosophy is, if I can sell you my time, then you're going to give me your money in exchange for that time. And this is a video that you sent me just recently that explains this exact point.
Today we're here to discuss something that has a lot of companies confused, and I'm here to help. It's really very simple. Let's check the board. This is me at the grocery store. There are 82 cash registers. There are 2 cashiers. Over here, there are 19 self-checkouts. What you're not understanding is I don't work here. Why is there no discount at self-checkout? I'm doing the job of others. I do not work here. Do you understand? I need to be compensated for my time and effort. I saw a mother look like she had just got off work in the self-checkout. You think she came here to also work? I need you all to get people at these stations and man them, okay? Do your job. I don't work here.
I didn't know what you were going to play because you were so serious about this going into this, like the rule of selling, and here's Jason Forrest teaching something. Yeah. This is hilarious. Yeah. I gotta lighten you up a little bit here. Yeah. We have something this funny, and you're still trying to be all serious about the whole thing. I mean, it's a serious topic, but that is a wonderful video.
It is a wonderful video, but it's the number one. It is the thing. I mean, whoever that lady is, and we were together. I mean, I 100% agree with everything she's saying. It is the most frustrating thing on the planet about how many places make me do the work, and then like even most recently with like all the tipping that goes on. It's like, and again, I love tipping, and I want to tip you based upon the work that you do. But there's plenty of places now that you like feed yourself and you do all the work, and then you're also the minimum tip is 15%. Like I don't really like that stuff. Like it's starting to bother me because again, I work hard to make money and then I want to give you my money so that you can give me your time. Like that's what I'm trying to do. And that's what she's referring to as well. Like we're not getting discounts from these things.
Yeah. She's like, I'm paying and I'm giving you my time and my work. No, I agree. I mean, and this is, I don't think I've been to Target in years because as soon as it all went to self-checkout, everything has it now, but Target was the first that had the self-checkout. And that made me so mad that to self-checkout. And then what made it worse, I don't know if Target still has this or not, or I haven't seen this other places, but there was this sign that would be right above that said smile, you're on camera, or like we're watching you or something like that. And I thought, okay, so first of all, I have to do the work myself. And then you're going to yell insults at me like I'm a criminal trying to steal something. And so saying the sign didn't say thank you so much, for doing this work for us. It said I'm watching you because I think you're a crook. Like that's what the sign says. And I was like, I am not going to be offended at Target by a sign, the checkout, pretending like I'm some sort of criminal. Now I will say, since then I've seen some like YouTube videos of people using those and like stealing things. So I get it. But to me, it changed my mindset. Here's what it did. Before, my mindset said Target is like the upscale place to shop for like your fast things. So it's like a fast, superstore, but it's upscale superstore. And, people used to joke like it's Target's, like this is fancier. But as soon as that sign came up that said, we're watching you, in my mind, what happened is I thought, oh, low life criminals must shop at Target. I don't belong here anymore. Like I thought this was fancy and nice, and it's not nice. This is where criminals are. And from that, the identity shift that I had shopping there. So every time I walked in, I felt poor and low life. Not that those have to go together, but that's how I felt. And I was like, it didn't feel good to be there anymore. And so that's when I stopped shopping at Target, was because of those signs.
Well, the first time I really kind of experienced or learned this whole lesson that people get upset if they feel like they're overpaying for something. That's what we're really talking about. And this was many years ago. It's when I was selling homes, selling real estate. And I would go over the purchase agreement. I'd go over the contract with a person, and I would assume it's still the case today. But back then, it actually had the amount of commission that the realtor had that brought me the lead, and then it had the amount of money that I was being paid. Mm-hmm. So everything was very transparent, and it was amazing how many times they would like the customer would have to initial like how much their agent was receiving that brought them out there, and kind of drop them off with me, and then how much I was receiving. And it was amazing how many times people would say, like, I cannot believe how much so-and-so is getting paid. I can't believe how much my realtor is getting paid on this. Like, is there any way we can cut them out? Because they don't deserve any of this. Like, they don't deserve this much. Like, it was amazing how much customers would throw them under the bus. And I was like, well, tell me more. And they just didn't do anything. They were like, you did everything. Like, you were phenomenal. Like, you spent, 20 hours with us, and you explained this, explained this, and explained this, and explained this, and they just didn't do anything. They didn't know anything any questions that we asked. And that was this kind of this aha moment. I don't think I've ever told you a story before, but that was this aha moment and that was something I used to teach back in the earlier days, but it sounds like you bring it back. And I would say this aha moment was look at the amount of money that you are charging someone in your commission, and then ask yourself, would you pay you for that amount of money? Like if they were required to pay you out of their own pocket, not that it was just part of what the builder was paying you, but like it was actually their choice, and they had to like fill in the blank. Like would they pay you that amount, or would they pay you more? And my aha moment back then was, I want customers to always look at me and go, man, you're underpaid. Like you are so underpaid. And I would love when they would say that. Like it was like one of the greatest things. You're like, man, I can't believe that's all you're making out of this. Like because in most of the cases, the realtor makes more than the in-house new home salesperson.
Correct. Yes.
Right. So the realtor, not all cases, but in some cases, the realtor is doing way less work than the new home salesperson is doing, and the new home salesperson is making like half or less than half of what the agent's making, and it would just frustrate them. But then sometimes there are new home salespeople that same thing. They're not doing enough to deserve the $10,000 commission. I mean, it's not. They wouldn't do that. And so the customer goes, well, I'd rather just get the discount on my house. Can I just get the discount on my house? Because I'd rather just, it's not worth me paying this. I'd rather just get a lesser expensive house.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a great philosophy of am I worthy of the amount that I'm being paid on this? I think that is a great, and I think that's for all employees, like wherever, like you'd be a salaried employee and be thinking that through your job. Did I give this much value this week? And I'm thinking too, I was thinking about, you used to joke around about the signs in new homes, right? The signs that tell people, like, take your dirty shoes off.
Oh my gosh.
And that Target sign's like reminding me of that, of like, hey, like, please don't use our bathrooms because we think you're filthy, and take your shoes off because you're dirty and nasty. So like, we really don't even want you in your dirtiness messing up our spotless home. And I mean, all the other things that I don't see it as much anymore. Maybe I just don't see it with our clients as much. All of those like rules and regulations of walking in, which are equivalent to the Target sign of like, you're a criminal. But in model homes, it's like, you're a dirty human. Like, please stay out. Please, and whatever you do, don't bring your dirty little children in here to see if they want to live in this home or not.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there was one company one time that I'm like, I don't even know how you're still in business. I mean, it was stuff like take your shoes off before you walk into any of the homes. Don't sit on the furniture. No unruly kids. Like, how do you even say that? I was like, no unruly kids. Allowed to move around. I mean, you're selling houses. Like, it's what. You're not buying the house for you. You're buying the house for the kids.
For the unruly children.
You
need a bigger house. If your kids were ruly, you could stay in the small house.
Yeah.
It's the unruly kids that are the reason you need a bigger house.
That's what you want.
Yeah.
You want unruly kids. And because unruly kids means you're going to sell something, which is awesome. And then they would say, and only one working toilet. And it happens to be on the third model, like around the corner, quarter mile away. Go over there, you scum. Like, it was just, I'm like, how do you all even sell anything here? Like, this is just the most weird karma ever. But I remember when I was selling, I loved unruly kids. And I would just have these little, back in those days, I would have these little Game Boys, little black and white, that's how old I am now. But I had these little black and white Game Boys, and I would go and I bought several of them. And so, person would come in and I would just give them the Game Boy. And I would say, go find your room. Here's a Game Boy, go find your room. And that little unruly kid was like, Mom, can I do it? I'm like, yeah, here's your Game Boy. Which game do you want? Tetris, whatever you want. And I would give it to him, turn it on. And I was like, the bedrooms are that way. You guys go find your bedroom. And when Mom and Dad come, I want you to tell them why you chose this bedroom, and tell them like why you want this to be your room. So, I mean, number one, I immediately got the unruly kids like out of the distraction of the parents. Now they can be present with me, right? And then number two is they moved them in emotionally, and I would like totally milk it for all it's worth, right? I mean, like, so all of a sudden you had little, little bitty Elizabeth that was in her bedroom, and she was all cute, like playing her Game Boy on her bed in there, and I'm like, Elizabeth, why'd you pick this room, and why do you like this room, and are you gonna decorate it like this, and tell your mom how you're gonna decorate. Are you into these kind of things? Because I always decorate them kind of cool, And of course, Elizabeth now is like talking to her mom about how she would decorate it, and it's done.
Man,
it's all done. It's all done.
You got the kid on your side,
Yeah.
selling for you.
Yeah.
That's crazy right there.
Well, then you ask the kid too. Speaking of that, you would actually ask the kid. So how do you like this room compared to like the other rooms that you've seen? Like, is this like your room? And like, you would like get them, and you start asking those comparison questions to them. And then they, of course, like they have never been asked their opinion ever. And so they just, you always knew it was a slam dunk, because they're never going to say they liked something else better. They would always say they like yours the best, because you're the only one that ever asked that question. So then immediately now the kids like it best. And of course, that means that the conversation aren't present with your biggest competitor, which means now if you weren't going to close them that day, then the kids were immediately like nagging on their parents to buy that house as soon as possible. So now I had the kids on my side.
Well, you were the original person getting kids addicted to screens. Way to go. A little more screen time, kids.
It is what it is.
Great job.
All right. This has been a phenomenal session today. So we talked about a lot of things. We talked about the astronauts and the whole point of mental toughness around them. I mean, I think it's insane to think about. Again, I cannot imagine thinking I was going to be a part of something for 8 days and it turning into 9 months. I mean, that's just kind of insane to me. But to watch what they did to prepare for that, and to translate that and to learn from how we can use those same mental toughness strategies to help us salespeople and leaders and entrepreneurs, I think is phenomenal. And of course, just discussing all the things that we did today with with Lent. I think it's a great practice. I would love to do that in the future. We should do that starting next year as well. Just this annual practice of what are you going to give up as a leader for Lent too, not just salespeople, but as a leader and salespeople, entrepreneurs. What are you going to kind of give up or add? I think it's phenomenal, and just reminding constantly that we need to enjoy the rule of selling, make it easier for people to give us their money. So until next time, this is Jason Forrest. Push yourself, become a better version of you.